My name is Marc Dube and I am Together We Can's Auxiliary Operations Manager. As the Auxiliary Operations Manager here at Together We Can, I'm responsible for overseeing the staffing and some of the programming at Elevate, Solid Ground, Alliance, and Awakenings. So I guess if I'm looking as far back as my childhood, I would say that, for a large portion of my life, I was in search sort of for love and for acceptance and at times even just for stability. I think often I was misunderstood. I was very compassionate and very caring and for some reason ridiculed for that sort of thing in the environment in the school I was at. So I struggled for most of elementary and the beginning of junior high with friendship, with having friends, with having people that were close, with having people that I could trust. I had a home life that at times struggled with stability. There was some mental illness for a long time I wasn't getting that love or that acceptance out in the community or at schools or in clubs or even at home. As I came into junior high and I was trying to gain acceptance, I started to develop this ability to sort of become a chameleon, so to speak, where I would like what other people liked. I would start to take on other people's interests and stuff as a way of trying to gain acceptance, or I started to do things that were against my core beliefs and against my morals, doing things that I didn't necessarily feel good about, or saying things that I didn't necessarily believe, so I could start to build something, to have people that wanted me around or cared. I guess my earliest experience with alcohol would have been probably in grade 8. I found that when I was drinking, it was much easier for me to not have those negative feelings associated with presenting as something that I wasn't or trying to be something that I wasn't. I had at some point through grade 9 and stuff started to become a bit of a scrappy kid. I sort of earned my place in the group as the group defender, so to speak, and that sort of carried on from grade 9 till probably about the age of 20 or 22, where I sort of became the group defender. I became aggressive. I had a bit of a short fuse. I often tried to be the loudest, craziest person at the party, whether it was I was looking for attention or I wanted to be noticed. It was still this super deep down core desire to just be accepted and to be wanted and to be needed. And I truly believe I came to this world with a more compassionate and caring and deep love for people and for life, and I just through that process sort of lost it all. So I didn't really want to be hurting people. I didn't really want to be that type of a man, I don't think. I was raised in the household where I think the measure of a man was someone who could hold their liquor, hold their own in a fight, and took care of their own business, even if it meant keeping secrets and telling lies. And unfortunately, I carried that into even into my marriage. I didn't have an experience with harder drugs until I was 23. I had an experience with a harder drug at 23. The way I used that particular drug changed at age 27, and I had my first treatment experience at 29. If I had been able to see that some of those belief systems and some of the ways that I saw my father operate were wrong, I may have been able to speak about what was going on for me, but instead I chose to try to figure it out on my own. And, it sort of came to a head at 29 where it was very clear that my life had become extremely unmanageable and that I was going to need to do something to try to make some significant change. I spent the better part of my 30s in and out of doctors' offices, hospitals, and treatment centers. 10 relatively hard years with some brief successes. I did have 2 children along the way. I was the primary caregiver at times when I was stable enough. But just not totally willing to give up the fight, that I didn't want to accept that I was different or that I couldn't do some of these things or that I couldn't figure it out. I just really wanted to be figuring it out, I avoided 12-step programs because I didn't want to be sharing my secrets and asking for help, and that's not the way I was raised, and that's not the way I viewed, not a way I would have viewed as getting better, right? I wanted nothing to do with any of that. So, I sought out programs that didn't include that, or if it did include that, I just sort of faked it, right? I got good at telling people what they wanted to hear. I did 8 treatment stays. Fortunately for me, the 7th one was here at Together We Can. I can, when I look back now, I'm very grateful to have made my way here on my journey. I got put on a Greyhound bus in Kamloops, saying goodbye to my 2 young children and to my wife at the time. And I think I probably cried for the whole 4.5-hour drive here. I really wanted to have nothing to do with it. But, I got here and I was such an empty shell of a man at that point. I couldn't have told you what kind of music I liked. I couldn't have told you what I liked to eat. I had just been taking on everybody's stuff for so long, people pleasing and trying to do everything I could to be accepted, that I really had no idea who I was. And, I came here, I was heavily medicated. I had a diagnosis in active addiction that would prove to have been inaccurate. The right people were put in my path. There are some people that work here at Together We Can, people that are still around from when I first came in 2014 that were instrumental in my finding a way to commit to making some serious change, committing to 6 months in the beginning to my recovery instead of doing some sort of short program. I weaned myself off of all the medications, I changed my diet, I started working out, and I started to rediscover who I was. I ended up staying for a long time. I ended up, Together We Can offers lots of opportunities for volunteering and employment, and I found the family here that I had been looking for my whole life. My idea of a family is someone who has your best interest at heart, doesn't want anything from you but for you to be well and to be happy. And I didn't really have that with my biological family, but I can honestly say today that I have a lot of people in my life today that I consider family, people that are exactly that. At this point, I guess I'm just over 4.5 years clean. I can look at myself today in the mirror and I can tell myself that I'm okay, and it's actually true, not something I've been able to do for a very long time. Parts of the last 4.5 years haven't been easy. It always hasn't, it certainly hasn't been easy, but I was driving in on Tuesday morning, and I've shared this with several people this week, that I don't think that there's ever been a time in my life where I've been happier. I am mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically well. Everything is good. My relationships are good. I'm independent, like I could go on. but it's a result, for me anyway, of my journey landing me here. Yeah, here at Together We Can. Yeah, and the people, the beautiful people that work in it. Yeah, and the opportunities that it's afforded me. Yeah, you know, today those 2 kids that cried when I left on the bus love me, and they see me as a positive role model. And you know, I had the silver lining for COVID for me was I got to have my kids for 2 full months. I got to have them for 2 whole months in homeschool and get to be a full-time dad. And I'm just grateful today. Yeah. So. I mean, the gift of recovery for me is to feel whole. I feel whole today, and I feel comfortable in my skin today, more comfortable in my skin today than I've ever been. The gift of being able to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're okay, and actually, because for a long time I wasn't okay. There was no possible way I could have looked in that mirror and told the person that was looking back at me that he was okay. It just wasn't the truth, right? And so, yeah, love, relationships, family, and a deep understanding of who I really am, and you know, being able to operate from that place of compassion and love and stuff that was misunderstood when I was young. You know, this is the one job that I've had in my life where I can wake up every morning and be myself, and it works. I don't have to put on a mask. I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. I can just be me. And it works. There's just nothing more beautiful than that to me. Yeah.